name's Emily. This is a bit different. I was expecting to look out on your sea of beautiful faces, but instead I'm looking at, well, Justin, who kindly pressed play. So, but we'll roll with it. This is great, we're adapted. So, you may remember me from such episodes as playing the keyboard at youth church, or being Andy Spencer's wife, or that weird lady who knows a lot about ears. That's me. So my day job is I'm an audiologist, so a hearing specialist, and if you try to give me the joke, what? I will ignore you forever. So that's my day job. It keeps me out of trouble. I really enjoy it actually, and yeah, it's a bit about me. I have a wonderful cat as well who hates all of humanity except for Andy and Justin. So it's really annoying because she's super fluffy, so I always want to pet her, but she doesn't really like it unless they do it. A great sadness in my life. Anyway, we had to talk about David, and he's our next ancestor that we're looking at in the series. So the first one that we looked at was Abraham, and we see through through Abraham's story that, well, which really is God's story, that God is faithful and he can bring good out of anything. So God made the world, it was good, but humanity turned away from God and decided to do things their own way. So then God chose Abraham and said, right, I am going to give you lots and lots of descendants, lots of children and your children's children, and they're going to make a big nation. And I'm going to bless that nation so that it can be a blessing to other nations as well, so that the world can see the way it was designed to be, the way to live in a good relationship with God and a good relationship with each other. So he did this. Abraham messed up though. He didn't want to wait and trust God's promise, so he slept with a servant girl so that he could have a kid through her. But God was still faithful, and he still gave him a child to him and his wife, and he still made them into a big nation that was blessed to be a blessing, and that's Israel. So then we fast forward to Moses, and Moses lived in a time where the people had turned away from God again, and they ended up in slavery to the Egyptians, and it was awful, awful slavery. And Moses campaigned for his people to be set free, and God again was faithful, and he followed through, and he brought good out of this situation that was awful, and he pulled these people out of slavery and into what he called the promised land. So he gave them this land that was theirs, and he said, you can live here where you don't have to be slaves, you have this land to live off, and I will be faithful to you, and I will be your God. Now fast forward a bit again, and we come to just leading up to the story of David, and Israel turns away again, and it may not seem like they're turning away this time, but basically what they were asking for was a king. So they saw all the nations around them, and they had kings, and they said, oh, we want a king. We want someone that's going to be strong and powerful and lead us into battle if we need it, and to lead us and guide us. And you may think, well, sure, lots of countries have kings, no big deal. Problem was, they already had a king. God was their king. God was the one that was leading and guiding them. And so when they said to God, we want our own king, we want a king, what they're basically saying is kind of like a parent who has created this child and loves this child, and the child grows up and says back to the parent, I want a different parent, I don't want to have you, which is pretty awful really, but God is faithful, and he brings good out of any situation. So God was faithful to them, and he said, all right, if that's what you want, yep, I'll give you a king. And at first, the first king didn't work so well. Started out okay, but ended up being quite a corrupt king. And so God said, no, this is not what's right for my people. I want my people to be blessed and for things to be working out well for them so that they can be a blessing to other people. And so God said to them, look, I'll choose you a king. So if you insist on having a king, I will choose your king so that you can have the best king. And so Samuel the prophet went through this sort of process of of listening to God as to who he wanted to be king. And he found out that it was one of the kids of this particular family. So he went through all 7 of the kids. They were these big, mighty, powerful, really great kids. And God kept saying, no. And he got to the end and he said to the parents, God said it would be one of your kids. Do you have any other kids? And it almost sounds like a Cinderella type story, where David's parents go, well, I mean, yeah, there's one other kid, but he's out looking after the sheep. I mean, he's pretty small and not that impressive, which I relate to, just by the way. And said, oh, yeah, and you can go talk to him if you want. And so Samuel went and talked to David, and God said, yep, this is the guy. This is your king. And God often does things unexpected like that, whereas things may not work out the way that you think they should, but actually God always has this big plan. And under David, Israel actually did really well as a nation on the whole. David was considered one of the best kings ever, going forward from there as well, and he was called a man after God's own heart, which is really a beautiful term of someone who was close to God. And so God was faithful through Israel turning away, and he still gave them a good king. Part of the problem, though, was that when God said that David would be the next king, Saul was already still king, and Saul got very angry at this, and ended up basically chasing David around. David ended up hiding in a cave, fearing for his life. And in the middle of the Bible, there's this big book called Psalms, and basically it's a whole bunch of songs, and a lot of them were written by David, heaps and heaps of them. So David was quite a famous musician as well. And David, basically in these Psalms, there's a whole lot of them that are called laments, which is like songs of like raw emotion of just crying out to God. And so a lot of the time, David, when he was writing these songs, was literally in a cave fearing for his life. And so he writes these songs, he recorded them on whatever, so that they could be passed down. And we see all these songs of this raw emotion of David crying out to God in these hard times. But almost all of those laments end with a statement of hope. So there's a couple of them where they are just raw emotion. But most of them, David then brings it back to, but God, you are faithful, and I know that you will rescue me. And it's this really beautiful ending to just being honest with God, but also trusting that God will be there, God will be faithful. And I think that's really important for us to remember as well, that God is always faithful, even if it doesn't seem like it. And sometimes it may take years before we find out how things were meant to end. And just to be clear, this does not mean that God causes bad things to happen to bring good out of them. Often bad things just happen. It's part of our broken world. But God can always bring something good out of it. And so, and one example of that in my own life is when I was looking into audiology as a career. I did my first degree, and then I was looking at what I wanted to do with my life and saw audiology, and I thought, oh, this just makes complete sense. Like, I felt a really strong sense of calling to it, that this is what I was meant to be doing. Largely because it made sense, because I enjoy technology and maths, and constantly learning. I love to learn. And my mother was born profoundly deaf, so I've grown up with hearing loss in the family and had some personal experience, and I thought, yeah, this is definitely what I'm meant to do. So it's a master's course, it's quite hard to get into. I applied for it and was like, yeah, this is what I want to do, this is definitely what I want to do. And I didn't get in. And not only did I not get in, I didn't even get on the waiting list. Like, I was so far back, they were like, just, no, this is not what you should be doing. And I thought about it for a while, and I thought, well, but I really thought that God would be faithful to this. I really thought that God was calling me into this, and I thought that I was doing what was right. And I wonder if David might have thought a bit about that when he was in the cave. I thought I was following you, God, but why is this happening? And so anyway, basically I did a bunch of stuff in the year ahead, because I was still so certain that was what God wanted me to do. Did a couple of papers, did well on those, to try and sort of show them that, yeah, I was serious about this. I really wanted to get into audiology. And the next year I got in fine and got distinction in the course. So it definitely was what God wanted me to do, but not that year. The funny thing is that if I had gotten in that first year, we wouldn't have moved to Wellington, because I was adamant that I wanted to stay in Christchurch, and in the year that I graduated, there were no jobs in Christchurch, but there were jobs there the year before and the year after. So that means that Andy and I wouldn't have moved to Wellington, we wouldn't have met all these wonderful people that we have here. Andy wouldn't be running Youth Church. So there's all sorts of things that God has in plan, has in store, and it doesn't necessarily mean that he caused the bad thing to happen initially, but he will bring good out of it. And so through all of these different stories, through the life of David, and through David's screw-ups as well, there was this one really awkward situation where he found this lady that he liked and killed her husband so he could get her. No biggie. But he still was after God's heart. He still repented, and he knew that God would be faithful and that he had done wrong, and so he turned around. And yeah, I mean, that in itself is an encouragement to us that anything that we do, God can forgive if we turn around and turn our hearts back to God, which is really beautiful. But yeah, so God is faithful, and God can bring good out of anything. And so over the next couple of weeks, whatever you end up doing, I'd love for you guys to think about some questions. So one is, do you have a story of a time something good came out of something bad? Second question is there anything that you're waiting on God for now? Is there anything that you're crying out to God for? And where is the message of hope in that? And then finally, what can you do now to remember that God is faithful and be part of the good that is coming out of whatever is happening in your life? So have a think about that. Have a think about something you might do differently in the next couple of weeks because of what you've heard, and tell someone about it so they can keep you accountable. And together we will all draw closer to God and bring God's kingdom more on earth. Ka kite.
Hey team, it's Guy and Andy here. We are aware that this is pretty different to Youth Church, but it's great. We've got good content still coming out, so keep an eye out for Youth Church coming in the coming weeks.
Hey, we just had a great talk by Emily that we managed to get up online this week with the short notice that's going on. And we would love for you to be able to put your questions and comments in the chat below. And we'll dig through those and try to push out some of the answers based on that talk this week going forward. We're really excited about the ways that we can get creative about interacting in this time where more and more of us are being pushed into isolation. Hey Andy, give us an update about where we might be going to from here.
Yeah, your youth leaders are going to be doing something different this week. So have a look, check in with them, make sure you know what they're doing, so you can keep in contact with all your friends at youth group and your youth leaders especially. Youth
Church is going to shape a little bit differently going forward. Obviously, we're not allowed to meet together, but we've come up with the idea of pushing Youth Church out as a live stream week by week. We're going to do our best to get that out as much as we can. We're going to give our first one a go this coming Sunday. We're going to have a live worship service, and we're going to push out Aaron King's talk, which we're really excited about. So make sure, same time, online, 6 p.m. on Sunday for a live stream from Youth Church. We know that people are going to be starting to feel isolated, and we want to be able to connect people more and more in this space. We're not hanging on for survival here, guys. This is a chance for the church to grow, to thrive, and to flourish in a place where our clubs and our groups and the places we hang out are closing down. We want to be able to create a place where you can hang out as young people. So please connect with your youth worker and find out what's coming, because there's some really, really good stuff happening.
Comment below. We'll try as hard as we can to answer all those questions. So get involved, get connected. We'll see you here next week at 6 o'clock.
Don't panic buy. Wash your hands. Don't touch your face. We love you.
See ya.